Monday, Bharat, in a strongly worded response to the Canadian government, claimed baseless targeting of the Indian High Commissioner, its diplomats and officials in Canada in connection with the investigation into Khalistani terrorist and wanted criminal and designated person of interest Hardeep Singh Nijjar's murder or killing on Canadian soil, and firmly stated that the current atmosphere of extremism and violence poses a serious threat to the safety of Indian diplomats on Canadian soil. Can the Trudeau government deny its support for extremism, violence and separatism against Bharat? In fact, his own security agency chief made a big reveal weeks ago, confirming Pakistan ISI's backing Khalistani separatism and Khalistani extremists in Canada. Can the Trudeau government deny sheltering K-terrorists who spew venom against Bharat and spread anti-Bharat rhetoric? Listen in to what was revealed by the CSIS agent official not so long ago.
I think, Commissioner, what I would add there is the context that engagement of Pakistan is consistently in balance with trying to reduce the influence of India. And so some of the elements that I mentioned previously about the dynamics between suppressing voices can also have the opposite effect in terms of amplifying other voices. And in this particular case, influence of Pakistan is directly related to support of Khalistani extremism. So there's a different type of voice there, and yet it is also a more limited actor on the broader screen.
Also, can the Trudeau government deny sheltering K-terrorists who spew venom against Bharat and also drive a secessionist agenda against Bharat? A criminal like Nijjar, who broke Canadian law by wielding an AK-47, found a safe haven in Canada after being denied entry thrice. It was because of K-separatists and extremists within the Canadian administration and within the immigration and on forged false travel documents that he actually walked in and entered Canada. He changed his name, forged under a false identity, he entered Canada. Wanted gangsters, contract killers such as Goldie Brar, Arsh Dalla still roam freely on Canadian soil. Can the Trudeau government deny mainstreaming of a secessionist like this man? Gurpatwant Panon, a designated terrorist, his organization a designated terrorist organization by Bharat. This person who poses as a Sikh and has started growing this beard only now. Just about 6 months ago, he was walking in with a stubble and claims to be working for Sikhs. Has got nothing, doesn't practice Sikhi, doesn't even understand its tenets. He's a runaway criminal gangster indulging in nefarious activities, both on US soil and on Canadian soil. Openly threatens sitting Canadian MPs, openly threatens Indian diplomats, openly makes anti-Bharat statements and peddles a broken map of Bharat while sitting on US soil and Canadian soil. He has threatened a sitting Canadian MP, threatening Indo-Canadians openly in the name of political positioning, etc. But Canadian nationals being threatened by a US national on Canadian soil is okay for Justin Trudeau, and he's mainstreaming it on a state broadcaster. That's how he's platforming those people who are persons of interest for Bharat. Is this not backing extremism and separatism openly? What probity does a democracy like Canada show when it is openly advocating under the garb of freedom of speech entities who are trying to create and push a narrative of breaking another democracy, a thriving democracy like Bharat? Chandra Arya, the Hindu MP of the Liberal Party, who has frequently criticized this entire Khalistan extremism, is being openly targeted by Gurpatwant Panon. Is Chandra Arya not a Canadian national? Does he not have the freedom of speech? Is he not an elected member of Canadian Parliament? How is it that a state broadcaster is mainstreaming an element like him who's threatening a sitting Canadian MP? Hypocrisy of the West also out. On Canada's allegations in the Nijjar probe, the US is lecturing Bharat on cooperation. But should it not dig into the past and see its own history? And here on the right stand, we brought you the exclusive inputs of dossier 1 of K gangs in Canada and their operations, and how the Trudeau government continues to sit on Bharat's dossier on this entire K gang. Canada continues to provide safe haven despite Bharat's several extradition requests. 26 letter rogatories and extradition requests still pending with the Canadians. And since 2007, they have not extradited a single criminal, gangster, person of interest, designated terrorist as requested by Bharat. They have actually given more of these entities who have flown Bharat and its law haven, citizenship, and perhaps refuge on Canadian soil. Here, on this edition of The Right Stand, we bring you exclusive input shared by our Security Affairs editor, Manoj Kumar Gupta, and this is the second dose here, ladies and gentlemen. Intel sources have told CNN News 18 that the Khalistani movement has established deep roots in Canada with the help of extremists and local politicians, and of course, as the official CSIS chief there claimed, open backing of the ISI and the Pakistanis. Punjabi criminals, problematic migrants with aspirations to settle down permanently, quickly, and get their paperwork in order, and of course plotting by the Pakistan's ISI. These are the three root causes. That's what Intel sources have added. The Justin Trudeau government, the Intel sources said, has allowed protests, referendums, and shelter to known criminals. They further added, it is surprising for a developed nation like Canada not to cooperate with probes. Canada has more than 20 probes and LRs pending from Bharat. The ISI in recent years has penetrated deep into the immigration cartel, which is forcing youth to become party to gangsters there and get involved in the drug business and stand against Bharat in protests. Young girls from Punjab are being forced into prostitution by these drug cartels. This is what Intel sources have further added. The important thing is the penetration of Pakistan into Trudeau's party. That's what the Intel source has told CNN News 18. Bilal Chima is very close to them, and he is operating on behalf of Pakistan's ISI, funding Trudeau regularly. He has stolen Visa cards and MasterCards of Liberal Party and was saved by MP Sukh Dhaliwal. Whenever Trudeau comes to Atlin in British Columbia, he actually stays at their homes, these elements, these K-separatist elements. As reported earlier, sources told CNN News 18 that the International Sikh Federation is the root cause of the drug business in Canada. The organization raised cadre initially and started the business under the banner of International Sikh Federation with gangsters Bindi Johal and Jimmy Dosanjh. The gangs of the Johals, the Dagdure, Sanghera, and the Mahali Buttar and the Kangs regularly feature in drug seizures, gang wars, and criminal activities. These people used to work for the Federation earlier and later started their own work. Canadian gangs are interested in the cheap import of heroin from Afghanistan, and this comes via Pakistan and also some portions of Punjab. They export the refined drugs besides cocaine and ice back to Punjab and back to the Indian market. The Punjabi Indo-Canadian youth joined the business, which originally was started by the ISI for money. These days, drugs are coming from Mexico, America, Pakistan through trucks, since the Sikh community is mainly in the truck business. And in 2020, there was one of the biggest hauls, drug hauls, that the Canadian police ever, international drug haul that happened. $61 million, beg your pardon, $61 million worth of drugs that included cocaine, marijuana, and other drugs. Huge cachet that was nabbed by the Canadian police, and among the arrested, there were nearly 9 people from Punjab, all associated with some of these gangs. What should Bharat do in a situation like this, and at a time when more and more members of his own party are calling for Trudeau to resign? There are journalists in Canada who are refusing to toe Trudeau's line with respect to what the position that's been taken vis-a-vis Bharat. There are members of the RCMP and the Canadian intelligence who have said that there is more that's being done with respect to the Pakistani, nothing that's being done with respect to Pakistani interference and Chinese interference. As we speak, Justin Trudeau is supposed to depose before a commission that is looking into foreign interference. Ramneek Mann back with us. Anand Ranganathan, author, political commentator with us. Gary Keller, former advisor to the Canadian Prime Minister and foreign ministers, is with us. Edward P. Joseph, senior fellow of the SAIS Foreign Policy Institute, joining us. My namaste. Thank you very, very much for joining us. I first want to start with Edward. Edward, your thoughts on this, because people like Michael Rubin and other members in American intelligence believe that America itself, despite being part of the Five Eyes, has had enough of what's happening under the Trudeau administration. And there is a lot of leeway that's being given to these secessionist and separatist elements. Now, but the State Department believes that it is trying to echo what Justin Trudeau has claimed. Where do you stand in this entire matter?
Well, I stand strongly on the continued development of U.S.-India relations. So I'm here, I'm an American, I'm not Canadian. I cannot speak for the Canadian process and the Canadian allegations. I'm an American, and I believe in the U.S.-Indian relationship. And I'm very pleased to see how that relationship has grown under President Biden and Prime Minister Modi. It's a substantial strategic relationship across a number of areas: security, economic areas, even space. Even in outer space, India and the United States are cooperating. Prime Minister Modi was hosted here by President Biden in a very rare honor, given the very rare honor of a state dinner in his honor. And I want to see the U.S.-India relationship continue to prosper. India is a frontline global power, and that's my main interest. The concerns that are raised in Canada, of course, are quite serious. The U.S. made an arrest last November of a Indian national accused by prosecutors of planning to assassinate a Sikh nationalist. And unfortunately for that suspect, he made his offer to hire someone to kill the Sikh nationalist was an undercover U.S. agent. So the U.S., of course, has an interest in maintaining rule of law and order in the country and not having people assassinated on its soil, as India would have the same interest, not having opponents of various countries in India assassinated on Indian soil. So that's normal. It should not affect U.S.-India relations. The allegations from Canada, presumably, Prime Minister Trudeau has the evidence to support his allegations, and he should share that. He absolutely should share that. I think it's legitimate of India to say, give us the proof. That's a completely legitimate question.
Is there a difference, would you draw, Edward, between credible allegations and credible proof? Can there be credible allegations? Because so far, what the Canadian government, including the Prime Minister of Canada, have said is credible allegations. Can there be anything called credible allegations? There are allegations and there is credible proof, right?
Yeah, well, here, I mean, just speaking as a lawyer, and India, United States, we share a legal system that would apply similar legal concepts and precepts. We both inherited that, and yes, you can have credible allegations. It's possible to have credible allegations, but proof is determined in a court of law. That's proof. That's for a judge. That's for a court or a jury to determine proof. That's the finality of whether the allegations are true or not. But you can make, of course, if someone, a political leader, has evidence that appears to be well grounded, he can make that. But my point is, I think it's legitimate. It's totally legitimate.
So Bharat has provided not just credible allegations.
Give us that. Share that with us.
I'm just saying Bharat has provided credible allegations, not just credible allegations, credible proof of the involvement of elements who are based in Canada, who've been given Canadian citizenship, who are acting against the country, who are running a secessionist movement against the country. Will America tolerate a secessionist movement in America being organized by Bharat and orchestrated in Bharat? Will America tolerate it? If America can get into Iraq and bomb Iraq and take out Saddam Hussein for world peace, they can get into Abbottabad and take out Osama bin Laden because he's a terrorist. They can go ahead into Kabul, another sovereign nation and independent country, and take out Ayman al-Zawahiri. And the President of America can stand there and say, wherever you are, whoever you are, if you are an enemy of America, we will hunt you and we'll find you. So that's America's right. But Bharat, despite sending 26 different letter rogatories, cannot ask Canada to act, and America won't say a word to Justin Trudeau. Why?
Well, I'm not sure that they haven't. We don't know what the communication is between the United States and Canada on this. I think people in the United States were surprised that Prime Minister Trudeau made such a public set of allegations. And I would say this, of course, it's legitimate interest of India to be concerned about secessionist movements. That's absolutely a legitimate concern of India.
With due respect, Edward, you called Gurpatwant Pannoon a Sikh nationalist. He's not a Sikh nationalist, sir. He is somebody who is not even claiming the parts of Punjab that are occupied by Pakistan. He is only talking about the states of India, and he wants to break, including the capital Delhi, the state of Himachal Pradesh. No, you called him a Sikh nationalist, Edward. Will you?
I'm acknowledging this. Yes,
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. If there was an individual who I would platform here on, and India would platform, the Canadian state television has platformed this person. If Canadian state ever platform Osama bin Laden? How would America react to that? How should Bharat react to somebody who's trying to take about Bharat?
Answer.
Yes, please.
Let me answer. It's an interesting question, and let me answer. Okay. As I told your producer, I'm sorry.
Yes, I know you have limited time, so that's why I'm testing the patience of my other panelists and asking you this. Then I'll take it forward. Yeah, go ahead. Please.
Thank you. And you ask a very interesting question. As I said, I'm going to repeat this. India has absolutely an interest to protect its national security, its sovereignty, its territorial integrity, as against those who would seek to secede and break India's territorial integrity. India has that right, absolutely. Now, it's actually, I think, not a good idea to make comparisons to Osama bin Laden. Why? Because if you make that suggestion, then you're implying that indeed India, because it's true, the United States did go into Pakistan and did go into Abbottabad, where Osama bin Laden was hiding, either with the knowledge of the Pakistani government or without the knowledge of the Pakistani government, and the United States did. Why? Because Osama bin Laden was responsible for the worst terrorist attack on the United States in its history.
Are you trying to justify what America's actions are?
Please allow me to finish. You raise, I'm telling you, a very interesting question. I don't think it's wise to pursue this, because if you do, it's suggesting that in fact India is culpable of trying to assassinate.
These guys. You're turning the argument on its head because it's inconvenient for you to say. If America claims, Edward, with due respect, I'm interrupting you. Sorry. Yeah, please.
But you don't want to have a comparison with the United States Osama bin Laden case, because if you pursue that,
the comparison has to be both
you're
ways.
Suggesting that India that Prime Minister Trudeau.
But that would also imply
that's where I'm drawing the line, sir. That America till date has not offered up Gurpatwant Pannoon. The FBI is giving cover and protection to Gurpatwant Pannoon, an American national who's talking about a secessionist agenda. He's designated terrorist by Bharat. What has America done there? Has America curbed his movements? Has America said that you cannot act against an interest? You just said that Bharat and America friendship should grow further. Their collaboration, cooperation in terms of security should go further. But where is the action against Gurpatwant Pannoon? If an FBI and CIA are going to give him cover fire and allow and facilitate his movement across the world as he peddles this agenda, then should I not concur or infer that the American deep state is behind all of this? The American deep state wants this to be done.
No. This is don't infer and concur any of such things. And don't use a term like this. The policies of the United States are in control by President Biden and his cabinet, his appointed cabinet, and there's no some hidden agenda or people operating in a rogue fashion. No, but the interest of the United States is to have and continue to grow the relationship with India.
If that is the case, with due respect, I'm going to go to our other panelists.
These concerns should be raised with the United States, because I do understand and I say that's legitimate.
It's been raised.
Please.
The US State Department till date has not uttered a single word to Canada in public, like they have tried to lecture India, where they have said Canada must respond to the letter rogatories. Canada must extradite those gangsters who are conducting criminal activities and terrorist activities on Indian soil while operating from Canada. They have not said that we will give you access to Gurpatwant Panun and a process to legally take him to court and process him if he's a person of interest and designated terrorist. So where is the cooperation there? That's where the whole question is. Ramnik Maan, then Gary, coming to you after Ramnik. Yes, and then Dr.
Okay,
Ranganathan.
so good evening, Anand. I hope
Thank you for your
Mr.
patience,
Edward
gentlemen.
has
Yeah.
the patience to listen. Now, Edward, the very clear thing is that the Americans, the CIA, the deep state has been interfering in not just India's internal affairs, but we've seen that happening in Bangladesh, we've seen that happening in Pakistan, we've seen that happening in Nepal, we've seen that happening all over the world. You're the ones who've toppled governments, killed dictators, killed people who were ruling the countries. I mean, you have a whole history of doing such things. Well, when you talk about credible evidence versus vis-a-vis credible allegations, where are the weapons of mass destructions of Iraq? We haven't seen any yet. And what were you guys doing in Vietnam? So have a heart before you point a finger at us. Remember, you're pointing four at yourself now. Coming back to the topic.
No one is pointing a finger.
Well, these people are either
Yes, Ramnik Maan, complete. Yeah.
separatists, terrorists. These people, he is somebody who's a designated terrorist. And when you imply that, oh, don't give us the example of Osama bin Laden, because, then you will infer that you've done it. Well, not that we have done it, or not that we can't do it, or we will not do it in the future. That's a different story. Our capabilities are different. But the fact of the matter is, when you come into that comparison, do you also admit that these people are actually terrorists? And when you take a position that stand very clearly that, listen, I'm an American, what Canada does is not my affair, but I'll tell you, collectively, the West wants India to be in a jelly state. You want to deny India its rightful position at the top. You want to destabilize India inside. Do you not know that Ford Foundation, the fundamental organization of CIA, funded several opposition parties in India, is not a part of a larger design against India?
No,
Well,
no, there's no such design
the
against
Uncle
India.
Sam
That's
here-
not true.
No,
We may have
no,
differing
this
points
has
of view.
to be
He
spelled
heard you
out.
out, Edward. Just hear him out. Yes, Ramnik.
So this has to be heard. The enemies of Bharat, the enemies of India, the people who openly threaten the Indian diplomats in that country, the people who openly threaten Indo-Canadian Hindus, people who openly threaten Indo-Canadian Canadian citizens, now member of parliament, elected representatives of that country. You can't protect the rights. The legal track record, Anand, the legal track record of Canada, Kanishka went unpunished for such a long time. And when India asked for them to extradite Talvinder Parmar, Trudeau's father, Perry Trudeau, his answer was, you're not respectful enough to the Queen, so we will not extradite him. Now, coming back to Pannu's event today, we were talking in, coverted terms that, probably Canada, but you are out in the open now. And if you support somebody like the Canadian establishment, somebody like Justin Trudeau, you are actually supporting terrorism. And I have no shame in saying this, Anand, and for everyone listening, that Canada under the leadership of Trudeau is becoming the Pakistan of the West. It is becoming lawless. They have no policy. They are not being ruled by the rule-based order.
Right.
They're not following the democratic values that the West is known for.
If you would kindly yield, Ramnik Maan, I just want to bring in Gary also. He's been also waiting patiently, and Anand Ranganathan. Gary, there are many Liberal MPs who are also not happy with the way Justin Trudeau is conducting himself. They have called for his resignation. There is a report that I have in my hand, which is dated 2020, written by Terry Millerski, heading a think tank, which very clearly says that the rewording of what the Canadian interpretation was in its security doctrine, that's where it all started. This entire mollycoddling of these extremist lot. Your thoughts on what's happening in Canada? Thank you for your patience first up. Thank you. Go ahead, please.
And it's a pleasure to join you. And, I will say at the outset, I do believe Canada has had for some time, not just starting in 2020, but for some time has had a problem with Khalistani extremism and turning a blind eye. Part of this goes back even as far as the downing of Air India, which was the worst terrorist act conducted on Canadian soil. and was certainly found to be that after a number of blunders by our intelligence services. But this isn't a partisan issue. There has been, I think, over many years, a turning of a blind eye for a variety of reasons to Khalistani extremism and activism, especially in certain parts of the country, British Columbia, and now increasingly as migration trends change in other parts of the country. But I am struck by the way how the accusations against Panun have been handled compared to the situation with Nijar, right? Where you have there's an Indian delegation in Washington, D.C. as we speak, meeting with U.S. officials to work through the evidence. That is a sign of U.S.-India cooperation at the highest levels, at judicial levels, and in fact, the accusations of Panun were unveiled in an indictment. The way Canada has handled it has been very different. If you go back to 2023, when the Prime Minister in September of last year, unlike the unveiling of the indictment through the U.S. court system, got up in the House of Commons with very little notice to anybody and made the accusations against India, fairly vague accusations at the time, but made the accusations, in the House of Commons. That was a very different approach to handling a similar situation, if you will. And so the news that came out on Monday of Canada kicking out 6 Indian diplomats, and then the reversal action, which will be, of course, no surprise to those in diplomatic circles, that the Indians would kick out 6 Canadian officials. I think it was a surprise on the timing. It's a Canadian holiday, and not much happens on Canadian holidays in terms of news. And so that is now dominating the news. We also learned via the Washington Post that there was a 5-hour meeting in Singapore on Saturday between senior Canadian officials, including our National Security Advisor and Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, and the Indian Deputy Minister and the National Security Advisor, where Canada supposedly provided the evidence that had been collected by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and Five Eyes and FBI sources. Now, I understand there's debate in India about what was actually provided, and accusations back from the Indian side saying, well, there was nothing provided. But that's been the position of the government of Canada to date.
True. I just want to also read this out as I come back to you for another question. Extremists who support violent means to establish an independent state within India. This is the language that replaced Sikh, Khalistani extremist ideologies and movements. This is in the 2018 public report on the terrorism threat to Canada. This is where the entire doctrine or interpretation and this free run for these extremists and these elements started. That's where one of the aspects. This is a forward of this report by Ujjwal Dosanjh and Shovalay Majumdar, and that's what I'm quoting. Now, this is the map as I come to you, Dr. Ranganath. This is the Republic of Khalistan map. Interestingly, and this is from the SFJ website and their own book in 2019, that's what is being quoted in this report. Where is Pakistan in this? Where is the land of Punjab from Pakistan? Where is Nankana Sahib? Where is Lahore? Lahore is the capital of the erstwhile Punjab rule. None of it is mentioned. And that's what it says. Map of the proposed Khalistan seeks for justice includes several Indian states beside Punjab and even Delhi, but omits the traditional Sikh lands which are in Pakistan. Dr. Ranganathan. So, and these are the elements who are getting a free run. Should we not question the Americans? Why are they allowing this? As we question Justin Trudeau and this, look at what Jagmeet Singh and the Khalistanis are sitting there and doing in the name of freedom of expression. Then India should do a quid pro quo. Let's talk about the South and the North and the separation and the entire civil war. Let's try and get those elements back here. Let's try and talk all those elements who are trying to separate Quebec from Canada today. Should we then give them a free run here? Quid pro quo. While we say shake hands, let's sign trade deals, let's work together, let's have economic cooperation, etc., etc.
Good evening, Anand, and good evening to my fellow panelists. A very interesting discussion, but may I at the outset, with due respect to Edward, say that I congratulate you, Anand, in exposing the Americans' hypocrisy. America's hypocrisy, because on one hand you're calling a designated terrorist Panun as a Sikh nationalist. On the other hand, you're calling Osama bin Laden a terrorist but not a Muslim nationalist. So you can go and hunt for Osama, but on first principles, you are negating the first principle and saying, oh well, Osama is a terrorist, don't compare it to Panun. It's not the question that the moment we go after Panun, we expose ourselves. No, it's the question of America denying us our right to go after Panun and to extradite Panun. This guy is a designated terrorist who wanted to bomb Indian airlines, who wants to hijack them, who on the slightest pretext wants secessionism and wants to assassinate Indians. But he's not a terrorist, he's a Sikh nationalist. But anyway, look.
He also encouraged in Australia, in the UK, sorry to interrupt you, and in Canada, and in America, brazen assault on the Indian embassy, vandalism, arson, and also open threatening of Indian diplomats.
Yes,
Will any of these nations, Canada, America, UK, any of these nations tolerate that if something similar were to happen with their diplomats? What would happen? All hell will break loose. Yes, Anand, please complete.
No, look, and let me clarify at the outset, because there are two people who are in this domain, three in fact, but I speak as a layman. So my words are not restricted or cushioned by diplomacy or tact. Look, especially I speak of Trudeau and his henchmen. These thick as custard semi-literates don't even realize that if they claim that through scheme and stealth, Modi has systematically wiped out 20 designated terrorists on foreign soil, far from being outraged. 1 billion Indians would be jumping the line to vote for him. I mean, did any sensible American disapprove President Obama killing Osama on foreign soil? Which Indian would not want his country safer through his leader taking steps to eliminate its enemies? Every large and powerful nation runs covert ops. It is not only sensible, Anand, it is vital. And this Nijjar is the same guy who was put on a no-fly list, something that is done for criminals and terrorists, who bombed and assassinated innocents and formulated kill lists for Indian diplomats who wanted the breakup of India. And this Trudeau is the same guy who congratulated America for killing al-Zawahiri. He said, quote, killing of Zawahiri is a step towards a safer world. Canada will keep working with our global partners to counter terrorist threats, unquote. But when it comes to someone that India designates as a terrorist, someone who was heading a terror outfit, suddenly Trudeau enters into an apoplectic fit. Why was Trudeau?
No, Israel took out 3,000 Hezbollah cadre. They took out Haniyeh. They took out so many of them. What did Canada, what did Justin Trudeau have to say there? They took out the Hamas chief. What did America have to say there?
Yes. And the fact of the matter is, Trudeau was quiet when ISI killed the famous Baluch activist on Canadian soil. Why? Honestly, look, the only thing lower than Trudeau's credibility is his intelligence. He has single-handedly ruined Canada's relationship with India, possibly for years, if not for decades to come. And for what? For piddly little gains in Canadian electoral politics. Anand, in 1985, Khalistanis, as you know, blew up Air India 182, killing 329 innocents. Trudeau's father, who was then the Canadian Prime Minister, refused to hand over AI-182 bombers, including the dreaded...
He's not Prime Minister.
You know why? The reason that he gave, India is not deferential enough to the Queen. And fast forward to 2024 and Justin Trudeau, just like his father did 3 decades ago, is cow time to Khalistani terrorists just to placate an increasingly influential vote bank. Look, the fact is, Trudeau is doing nothing to stop the funding of secessionist groups in Canada who want to foment trouble in India. They attack our temples, our embassies, the making of kill lists, the grisly tableaus showing Khalistanis gunning down our ex-Prime Minister. And what does Trudeau do? Nothing. And now he's jumping like a cat on a hot tin roof. You know why? His party has lost important by-elections in Montreal. 20 of his own MPs have asked him to step down. His alliance partner Jagmeet is no longer with him. Separatists in Quebec are forming up for a revolution of sorts. He's going to be toast in the upcoming election.
No, they are not. They are not forming a revolution of sorts.
No,
that's ridiculous.
I'll tell you what.
Members of the Bloc Québécois sit in the Canadian Parliament. They get a stipend from the Canadian taxpayer. You know, whether you like it or not, and that ticks people off in a lot of ways. That's the reality of the situation. There's no violent Quebec separatism. That's ridiculous.
Correct.
Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau was not Prime Minister in 1985. It was Prime Minister Brian Mulroney. Those are just facts. That's not true at all.
Okay.
And far be it for me to send a lot of support to Justin Trudeau because I come from another party. But you know what? The government of India does not have the right to conduct assassination activities on Canadian soil. That is just not.
But the government of America and the governments of Israel have got the right to conduct activities on other soil and claim that they're doing it for the betterment of the world and to safeguard America. No, I'm just saying, sir, you cannot have. My humble submission is that if America can go to any lengths to save its own country and for world peace, then India as a nation has the right to ask another nation to hand over those who are working to break that country. And if those countries don't respond, then those nations need to answer their double standards. In this case, America and Canada. That's what I'm trying to say. So I'm just saying, look at Justin Trudeau's reaction to Israel and what they did to the Hamas and the Hezbollah chiefs. But if India asks for the extradition of Gurpatwant Pannu, look at what the response is.
May I address the double standard? May I address the double standard? Yeah, okay, thank you. Because you keep raising it, and I want to address it. And I have to say here, I'm most surprised to hear on this respected network, CNN India, this very high praise for Pakistan. I never imagined that on CNN India I would hear this exalted, incredible praise for Pakistan. Because that's what this, when you talk about double standard with Osama bin Laden, you're praising Pakistan. You're saying that, the United States should have just gone, and let me finish because I'll come to your double standard. You're saying, why didn't the United States just go to the Pakistani authorities in Islamabad and say, by the way, gentlemen, do you know that Osama bin Laden is hiding in your garrison town, Abbottabad? Could you kindly arrest him and hand him over to us? That's what you're implying. You're implying that your neighbor Pakistan is this wonderful, law-abiding country that had no knowledge whatsoever of Osama bin Laden. So this is...
Edward, so Pakistan is a rogue nation. Pakistan is a rogue nation, yet America is continuing to deal with it. Pakistan is a rogue nation, but has America... Edward, please tell me. So if Canada is allowing extremist nations, is Canada a rogue nation today or not?
I'm sorry, the viewers... I'm sorry, you have to allow me to finish. You allow me to finish. Allow me, please allow me to finish. Please allow me.
So are you?
Please,
1 minute.
Please allow me.
Okay. Let's have semblance of calm. Yes, Edward, finish.
Okay, thank you so much, and I respect all your panelists on the show and yourself as well. So in this case, as I said, India has absolutely legitimate interest in ensuring that separatists and terrorists, let me use the word because the gentleman said that I didn't use the word, the United States and India share a strong concern against terrorists. So it's very simple. It's not like Pakistan and Osama bin Laden. In the United States, you have a responsible partner, a friend in the United States. You bring to your allegations to the attention and say, look, United States, you're harboring
Edward, I'm running out of time, so I'll have to interrupt you here.
And the United States should act I agree with you.
It's just a humble submission, sir.
This and
Gurpatwant Pannu currently is an American national.
With Osama bin Laden, and you know that, and I'm sure your viewers know that. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Edward. I just want to wind up with this humble request. Gurpatwant Pannu is an American national who's threatening a sitting Canadian MP. He's threatened Indian diplomats and he's threatened the secession of Bharat. Let's see if America acts against him. Let's see if America acts. So far they've not acted. They are actually giving him protection. FBI officials have been seen giving him protection. That's what's happening.
There's an Indian delegation in Washington, D.C. as we speak, negotiating and working through the evidence that's evidence of a responsible relationship between two countries through the course of law.
I just hope the Liberal Party, the Liberal Party finds some sense and is able to figure out someone with a little more sense and responds to the 26 letter rogatories and extradition requests. The RCMP named Bishnoi and his boss and his aide, Goldie Brar, is sitting in Canada. They have not nabbed him. Now what more do I have to say? I've got to wind up. Thank you so much. Yes, Anand Ranganathan, final word. Yes, thank you,
Edward. My respect to everyone.
Yeah, Anand, just 30 seconds. Look,
Yes, I got to wind up. Yeah.
You don't take 1 year to sift through evidence, as the gentleman from Canada is saying, when you have video footage right now. It's running right in front of us.
Yes.
This guy is threatening to blow up planes. This guy is making kill lists. This guy wants to eliminate Indians. What more evidence do you want? At least arrest him.
No, and he's trying to create a mass movement of hate against Indo-Canadians. Indo-Canadians who have a differing political view. He's being platformed on the state broadcaster. Indo-Canadians who have a differing political view, he's trying to say, push them out of the country, extradite them, sanction them, and he's being platformed on the garb of freedom of speech. Now, need I say more?
But you know what the reason why he hasn't been extradited? Or others haven't been extradited, and this is a long-standing position in Canadian justice, is that in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, there's no guarantee of the individual would not be executed in India, and that is a long-standing legal precedent in Canadian. Whether you agree with it or not, that is a long-standing
Sir,
Canadian
I'll tell you
legal
what,
precedent.
the Honorable Supreme Court of our country and the Honorable Courts of our country have provided far greater justice than the Canadian courts, who absolved the Kanishk bombers of any wrongdoing. We have punished more criminals and terrorists than the Canadian courts. Canadian courts themselves, despite open and shut cases and proof, sir. So with due respect for Canada,
I agree with you. I think that is the black stain on
with due
our
respect to
history.
the Canadian courts, it's quite rich coming from the Canadian establishment and the Canadian government if they're worried about the legalities of our court. So
I think the outcome of the Air India over the years is a black stain on Canada. It will continue to be a black stain on Canada.
That's not the only one. There are more.
Right. Well, I have to wind up on that note. We'll continue this conversation. Thank you very much for your patience and for a very, very engaging discussion, gentlemen. Thank you. We're going to take a short break, ladies and gentlemen. When we come back to our viewers, shocking pictures coming in from Bangladesh. Shocking, absolutely shocking. Not one, not two, not three, at least 6 instances in the last 3 or 4 days of brazen atrocities against Bangladeshi Hindus, which only signals at an open free run for radicals and perhaps a pogrom against Bangladeshi Hindus. Stay with us.
At L'Oréal Group,
diplomatic tensions that are escalating. Now, as these diplomatic tensions continue to escalate, US State Department has now said that matter of Canada is serious, and what we expect India is to cooperate with the Canada. So these are the latest inputs that we're tracking from the ground, and we're getting a reaction from the United States, where it is expected out of India to cooperate with Canada on basis of these allegations. Now, remember, the diplomatic row between India and Canada has escalated following allegations from Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau that India may be involved in the assassination of a Canadian Sikh leader. Now, this accusation has led to mutual expulsion of diplomats and heightened tensions in both the countries, as both the nations grapple with issues related to national security, human rights, and the diaspora. So these are the latest inputs that we are tracking from the ground at this point of time. Now, joining us on the broadcast is our colleague Akanksha. A very good morning, Akanksha. How can the United States actually justify its calls for cooperation when it has not directly addressed the serious implications of Canada's allegations against India also?
A very good morning to you, Kohina, and our viewers. And that is precisely also the point that India has been making, that, you know, our requests for extradition, the kind of various gangsters over there, many of them also branded as terrorists. Apart from that, the anti-Hindu graffiti, the kind of defacing of Hindu temples that's taking place, the defacing of the idol of Mahatma Gandhi, all of these requests which have been made by the MEA for investigation by the Canadian authorities have in fact been left unheard. Now, what Matthew Miller, the spokesperson for the US State Department, has said is that they have made a very serious note of everything that's happening as far as the downgrading of the diplomatic ties between Ottawa and New Delhi is concerned. what is very surprising and misplaced is the comment that's come in that they wanted to see the government of India cooperate with Canada and its investigation, but India has chosen an alternate path. So the US State Department often makes remarks which are off the cuff. They are misplaced and lopsided even at the moment, because remember, the Ministry of External Affairs has been very vocal about how not even a shred of evidence has been provided with Canada, and that New Delhi is very much willing to cooperate, as it is already doing so in the investigation of the alleged Pannu murder plot, who is also a US citizen. Remember, this entire news of the downgrading of diplomatic ties arrived on a day when we've seen an inquiry committee from India traveling to the United States. In fact, an official has been arrested by India in this entire plot. So we all know that action arrived soon after the US State Department spokespersons met earlier during this year, as far as Mr. Jake Sullivan and the NSA, Indian NSA, Mr. Ajit Doval is concerned. And soon after, India has been taking up this entire inquiry. But having said that, that's not been the case with Canada. India has been very vocal that Canada ought to have followed up through diplomatic channels, something they in fact did by pressurizing the Indian High Commissioner and intensively engaging the High Commissioner over the last year. They choose to now target him, not even provide him adequate security, so much so that India has had to withdraw the High Commissioner along with other diplomats in Canada. That goes on to, in fact, indicate the kind of approach that Canada has taken. The RCMP in its press conference was very scant in the evidence. They were making accusations, but they had no solid, concrete evidence to back those claims up. Apart from that, we've also seen there's been a lot of there's a lot of chatter in the media, but there should have been proper diplomatic back channel talks, and secret information ought to be shared through bilateral channels and not publicly as Canada is doing. So I think it is Canada's approach which ought to be questioned, not India's.
Right, Akanksha, thank you so much for bringing in all those details. Well, US is clearly prioritizing the diplomatic relations over accountability. Let's hear out what the US State Department actually had to say.
The timing of those was completely coincidental. When it comes to the Canadian matter, we have made clear that the allegations are extremely serious, and they need to be taken seriously, and we wanted to see the government of India cooperate with Canada in its investigation. Obviously, they have not chosen that path.
Diplomatic tensions that are escalating. Now, as these diplomatic tensions continue to escalate, US State Department has now said that matter of Canada is serious, and what we expect India is to cooperate with the Canada. So these are the latest inputs that we're tracking from the ground, and we're getting a reaction from the United States, where it is expected out of India to cooperate with Canada on basis of these allegations. Now, remember, the diplomatic row between India and Canada has escalated following allegations from Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau that India may be involved in the assassination of a Canadian Sikh leader. Now, this accusation has led to mutual expulsion of diplomats and heightened tensions in both the countries, as both the nations grapple with issues related to national security, human rights and the diaspora. So these are the latest inputs that we are tracking from the ground at this point of time. Now, joining us on the broadcast is our colleague Akanksha. A very good morning, Akanksha. How can the United States actually justify its calls for cooperation when it has not directly addressed?
Back on with 6 different instances that will lead you to believe that there is an agenda against Hindus in Bangladesh. Deadly design coming to the fore. A veteran Hindu journalist hacked to death in front of his house in Mymensingh, Sardar Upazila. The extremists hacked him in the head and his left wrist was severed. The incident took place in Tanpara area of Majipara of Shambujganj, Upazila on Saturday. For the last couple of days, Bhadra was engaged in raising a voice for persecuted minorities and illegal drug peddling during Durga Puja festivals. Attack on Hindus during Durga idol immersion. Radicals didn't allow immersion of the Durga idol. Shocking visuals from Dhaka, Shankari Bazaar area. Radicals throwing bricks and hot water in Patauthuli. While Hindus were taking the Durga idol from Dhaka Shankari Bazaar to Sardar Ghat or Sadar Ghat for immersion. 2 Hindus were injured. Visuals show how radicals tried to desecrate Durga Puja Mandap on the last day of the festivities, and they were caught reciting the Quran at the Puja Mandap. This incident took place in Takawari in the Sarvajanin Durga Mandir in Barishal in Bangladesh. Also, this is how extremists are threatening to kill Sukumar Bakcher, a Hindu teacher in the government college of Fakirhat, on false charges of insulting religion. Islamists have gathered in large numbers and are protesting against the Hindu teacher and issuing threats to him. One only prays for his safety in the coming days. So almost 100 Hindu youth attacked by radicals in Old Dhaka on October 13th at a time while the procession was heading for immersion. Instead of arresting those who attacked the Durga idols with stones from rooftops, the authorities unleashed violence on innocent devotees. The dead body of an 80-year-old Hindu priest was found hanging from a tree outside his home in Sitakunda Upazila in Chittagong district of Bangladesh. Evidently, Das was first murdered before being hung from the gooseberry tree outside his house, and this was just in a bid to grab this entire land around his place and the temple. Sadbhuja Gaur Das, President ISKCON Ayodhya with us. Anand Ranganathan stays on with us. My namaste. Worrying visuals and Sadbhuja Gaurdasi, I want to understand, are you in touch with members of ISKCON in Bangladesh? What is the reports that you're getting from there?
Thank you for inviting me. Are you able to hear?
Yes, go ahead please.
Yes, we are in contact with our department. It's a very sad news. We are also contact with our president. So many temple is here. We are requesting to the VP to try to be in touch with them. They won't try to help us outside, but inside they are not taking so much. We have to protect ourselves. This is a very dangerous situation in Bangladesh. We also request to our government. They are also helping. They are also helping. They are also in Dhaka government. But the local people are become very disturbed because they are thinking that they are Hindu. We take all them to we are human beings. We don't fight to be second. We are only distributing the community. We help in Dhaka people in previously we distribute so many state of Prasadam. In all times we try to help. We only request to help them. Please help. Please help us. We also request from your channel also to all Dhaka people. Please maintain the humanity. Don't fight on the name of religion. First religion is humanity. So each other. Let live the life. This is my request.
No, but the point is, if their agenda is that they do not agree with your way of life, and despite being seen as an inclusive nation, there is a free run for radicals. We have a serious concern, and who's going to do what about this, Dr. Ranganathan? What are we going to do about this? As Indians, we can only report and put this out. This is what is happening. But those champions of minorities, those champions of human rights, those champions of who believe that 27 crore population in Bharat is in more danger than the 1.3 million minorities in Bangladesh, will they speak up?
Anand,
Well, I'm just going to request Dr. Ranganathan for his thoughts, and then I'll come back to you. Sadbhuja Das.
Yes, yes. Yes, with due respect to Dasi, if I can just have a minute. Anand, you know my stand, and I am absolutely certain about it, in fact vociferous about it, because as the adage goes, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. This is fooling me to the level of infinity. So it is compounded shame on us. When you say there is little we can do, no. There are two questions out here. Number one, ever since the trouble started and the pogrom, there is no other way of describing what is happening to Hindus in Bangladesh. That commenced with the the regime of Yunus taking over. Have we made a single detention or a relief camp on this side of the border to at least give temporary relief to the Hindus who are fleeing certain death from Bangladesh? No, we haven't. Otherwise, I challenge the government to tell us if they've made any camps this. There are tens of thousands of Hindus who want to escape certain death. What are we doing about it? Number two, and this is where I say that time has come for us to stop blaming every Islamist or every person who's involved in this program, because you can't reinvent the wheel. This is bound to happen. The time has come for us to redress the historical injustice and the historic injustice that was meted out not just to the Hindus of Bangladesh, but generation upon generations of Hindus of Bangladesh. We have to open our doors and allow every Hindu around the world a right to return. This is, I'm absolutely certain about it. Israel has it, and for valid reason. India must have it. Let us stop complaining. Let us stop pleading with those Islamists to mend their ways. Do you think they're going to listen to us? Do you think they're going to mend their ways? It's all written. What needs to be done for them, it is written. We have to act, and we are not acting. So I'll stop blaming them. I'm absolutely certain about it. I am blaming us.
No, but the point is that should this not be raised on the international forum? Should the UNHRC not be apprised of it? There is what we can do at our borders to help Bangladeshi Hindus, but there is also more that we can draw attention to, because this regime change was orchestrated by certain entities of the West, and their involvement is now more than evident, as claimed by Mohammad Yunus himself when he went to the US recently. Yes, Sadbhuja Dasi, final word. Can you hear me, sir? Well, I can't hear you there. I've just got news. I got to wind up. We got more news as we got the last 30 seconds. The Civil Aviation Minister Ram Mohan Naidu has issued a statement condemning the bomb threats that were recently received by different airlines. He said strongly condemn the recent bomb threats to Indian air carriers. We are closely monitoring the situation and ensuring that every necessary measure is taken against such actions. We are committed in maintaining the highest security standards, and passenger safety remains our topmost priority. With that, it's a wrap of this edition of The Right Stand. Brass Tacks with Zakir Jacob shortly. Stay with us.
Brought to you by
diplomatic tensions that are escalating. Now, as these diplomatic tensions continue to escalate, US State Department has now said that matter of Canada is serious, and what we expect India is to cooperate with the Canada. So these are the latest inputs that we're tracking from the ground, and we're getting a reaction from the United States, where it is expected out of India to cooperate with Canada on basis of these allegations. Now, remember, the diplomatic row between India and Canada has escalated following allegations from Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau that India may be involved in the assassination of a Canadian Sikh leader. Now, this accusation has led to mutual expulsion of diplomats and heightened tensions in both the countries, as both the nations grapple with issues related to national security, human rights and the diaspora. So these are the latest inputs that we are tracking from the ground at this point of time. Now, joining us on the broadcast is our colleague Akanksha. A very good morning, Akanksha. How can the United States actually justify its calls for cooperation when it has not directly addressed the serious implications of Canada's allegations against India also?
A very good morning to you, Kohina, and our viewers. And that is precisely also the point that India has been making, that, our requests for extradition, the kind of various gangsters over there, many of them also branded as terrorists. Apart from that, the anti-Hindu graffiti, the kind of defacing of Hindu temples that's taking place, the defacing of the idol of Mahatma Gandhi, all of these requests which have been made by the MEA for investigation by the Canadian authorities have in fact been left unheard. Now, what Matthew Miller, the spokesperson for the US State Department, has said is that they have made a very serious note of everything that's happening as far as the downgrading of the diplomatic ties between Ottawa and New Delhi is concerned. what is very surprising and misplaced is the comment that's come in that they wanted to see the government of India cooperate with Canada and its investigation, but India has chosen an alternate path. So the US State Department often makes remarks which are off the cuff. They are misplaced and lopsided even at the moment, because remember, the Ministry of External Affairs has been very vocal about how not even a shred of evidence has been provided with Canada, and that New Delhi is very much willing to cooperate, as it is already doing so in the investigation of the alleged Pannu murder plot, who is also a US citizen. Remember, this entire news of the downgrading of diplomatic ties arrived on a day when we've seen an inquiry committee from India traveling to the United States. In fact, an official has been arrested by India in this entire plot. So we all know that action arrived soon after the US State Department spokespersons met earlier during this year, as far as Mr. Jake Sullivan and the NSA, Indian NSA, Mr. Ajit Doval is concerned, and soon after India has been taking up this entire inquiry. But having said that, that's not been the case with Canada. India has been very vocal that Canada ought to have followed up through diplomatic channels, something they in fact did by pressurizing the Indian High Commissioner and intensively engaging the High Commissioner over the last year. They choose to now target him, not even provide him adequate security, so much so that India has had to withdraw the High Commissioner along with other diplomats in Canada. That goes on to, in fact, indicate the kind of approach that Canada has taken. The RCMP in its press conference was very scant in the evidence. They were making accusations, but they had no solid, concrete evidence to back those claims up. Apart from that, we've also seen there's been a lot of there's a lot of chatter in the media, but there should have been proper diplomatic back channel talks, and secret information ought to be shared through bilateral channels and not publicly as Canada is doing. So I think it is Canada's approach which ought to be questioned, not India's.
Right, Akanksha, thank you so much for bringing in all those details. Well, US is clearly prioritizing the diplomatic relations over accountability. Let's hear out what the US State Department actually had to say.
The timing of those was completely coincidental. When it comes to
Good evening, welcome to Rostax. I'm Zakir Jacob. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar was in Islamabad today for the SEO Summit, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. He had some pretty harsh words, mincing no words at all for the host Pakistan and also their biggest benefactor China when it comes to the issue of terrorism. After all, India's stated position has been that talks and terror cannot go hand in hand. Speaking from Pakistani soil, the External Affairs Minister made it clear that combating terrorism and separatism is crucial. He also said that countries of the SCO need to be firm about countering terror. After all, it is one of the stated objectives that is mentioned in the very charter of the SCO. And this whole idea that you can have connectivity projects and connectivity projects will reduce all ills that are plaguing the region, the External Affairs Minister said it is naive to imagine in this day and age that connectivity can be encouraged at the cost of terrorism is simply an idea that will not bear fruit. The question, though, is those tough words from the External Affairs Minister, and remember, he's the first Foreign Minister of the Government of India to go to Pakistan in almost a decade. The last time an EAM of India went to Pakistan was in 2015 when Sushma Swaraj was the Foreign Minister. The big question is, have China and Pakistan, for whom that message was intended, have they got the message and will they heed?